Hey guys, and welcome to the Garage Athlete Show with myself and Dan. We are on episode 31 today, and because you lovely lot haven't asked us any questions, bad group, we've come up with a couple of topics where we get asked the same things come up in the group like so many times. It's like, what's the best diet? What's the best training plan? What's the best split?
A quick rant. Use the search bar, people.
Yeah.
We appreciate it's a new group, and you're excited and you want to ask. But honestly, if you ever have a question about flooring, heating, leg extension, leg curls, or the pre-workout, please just put it into the search because it's been covered. Yeah, quite a
Dozens of
few
times.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's not pissed off or anything. It's just it's been covered a lot. So
Yes. So obviously, if you want to check if anything's been covered, by all means, like DM one of us, and we'll then just tell you click the search tool. When I think we hit 6K members in the group, the main group, like recently. So yeah, there's lots of people in there. There's lots of opinions, and this is where it then starts to get confusing when people start putting like, what's like, I'm doing this, what should I do? You're going to get like 40, 50 different answers. And it's something called cognitive dissonance, where you will gravitate to the answers that you're already doing. We tend to, as human beings, we like to be around people that think like us. So if you ask an open question like that, yes, there's lots of information in there, but you're probably not going to change because you're going to go, well, out of these 50 answers, these 5 people say I'm doing it right, so I'm just going to carry on doing what I'm doing. I don't know if you've ever had that with like clients where they start to like argue with you about what you're putting in place. And like they'll slowly be like, well, I don't like this food, I like this food. And you're like, okay, then I'll change it. And after about like 12 weeks, you go in, hang on a second, like this looks like the exact same as when you came to me, because you keep making all these little changes to try and take you back. Like, why did you hire me as a coach if you just want to be pulled back to where you were?
You have no idea. Well, you probably do have an idea. Mine, in terms of powerlifters, fuck me. I had one in particular, absolute next level, man. To the point, it was the only time, well, maybe one of two, maybe the only time I should have stopped working with someone a lot sooner than what I did, because I think it did cause me some harm in terms of reputation and what do you call it? Is it validity? I don't know what the word is. Just through no fact of, in terms of to their lifts, we added, what was it, like 20 kilos to a squat and deadlift, and then like 10 kilos, maybe even like 15K to a bench, which for a natural powerlifter who's not jumping weight classes is fucking big. It's good.
Yeah.
But it was never right. It was never enough, because the thing with powerlifters and probably bodybuilding as well is whatever, and home gyms as well, whatever's trendy online is what everyone wants to do. So for example, at the time, staying in certain rep ranges for a very long time, multiple times a week is, it's great, but it wasn't necessarily something I was running with them at that time. But oh my God, they would just battle the whole time. But it was almost not, it was a battle against me, but not necessarily, not just the battle with your coach, but the battle of, if they're not speaking to you, but they'll tell everyone else about it. Like everyone else, to the point like that, it's not good when someone's giving you shit, but it was one of those weird situations where even though you were getting great results, you didn't like it because it wasn't the way you wanted to do it, which to me is a bit mental, if you ask me.
It's people, though, isn't it? They, as you said, they want to do what everybody else is doing, even though they've come to you as the expert to go, no, this is like, we all have a degree of flexibility, but we have like certain things we like to do. So like, I've had somebody that's come to me and they're going, right, I want to lose some weight. And then I've gone, okay, and I've set them out a plan. And like with bodybuilding, you can run the same plan from anywhere from like 6 weeks up to, if they're an advanced lifter, like I've been on the same plan now for 24 weeks. And I'm still making progress. But because he came from a powerlifting background, he was like, I'm getting bored at like 4 weeks. And it's like, okay, but I'm not a powerlifter. Like, I'm a bodybuilder. Like this is what we do. We run a plan for like 6 to 8 weeks, and you're not going to see like massive improvements every single week. You might get to a point for the first 6 weeks. What will happen is you make big jumps as you get up to actually training near your max at say 8 to 12 reps. And then what will happen is you get to the weight that's your actual training weight. And then you might add on like 1 rep, 2 reps to a set. You might do, if you do an initial heavy set and then dropping it off, you might add on 1 rep to your first set, and then you might drop 3 reps on your back off set because your first set's actually taking you to full muscle failure this time. Like it's the stimulus is different. And I was just butting my head up against the wall because he was like, oh, it needs changing. So then I made a program that cycled every 3 weeks, but so then he'd be then in a training block. But then that 3-week cycle, that was like 6 months worth of training, because he'd do 3 weeks and then it'd rotate, 3 weeks and then it'd rotate.
Sorry, mate.
But he was still, that's okay. But then he would still be making progressive overload within those blocks, but you'd need to run each of those blocks for like 3, 4, 5 times before then we'd kind of change the whole thing. But then he dropped out of coaching after like I'd literally just set up this really, really complicated plan. And it was just one of those where it was a little bit frustrating, and it actually made me go, you know what, if somebody kind of starts to question the plan like too much early on, sometimes it's better just to kind of like walk away and go, you know what, my style of coaching is probably not right for you. Maybe find a coach that's going to work in the style that you want. And this is why I would always implore anybody who's looking for a coach, don't just find the first one online. Like, make sure you follow their work for a little while, try and figure out how it is that they work, speak to them, to ask them like, how does the programming work? How does your nutrition work? Make sure that what they're doing is conducive to kind of like what you want to do, unless you're ready to make massive radical change. Like, don't try and coach the coach, like, especially if they're getting results. There's a reason why they get results, and the whole ecosystem of everything goes together. So like, I've had guys come to me that I just want a training plan, and I'll go, no, I don't do that.
Yeah.
I'd rather just not take the
money.
money.
Is when people ask for just a plan, I price the same as what it would cost to do 3 months of coaching. So yeah, sure, it's whatever, it's my cost. They're like, oh, I was like, I mean, you can have the coaching as well, you cannot, you nailed it there. I think when I walked, sorry, I just had to take delivery of my daughter's.
Yeah, okay.
But when we were talking, I think I heard you were talking about, where did you get to about, do you like the style of what the coach is doing, or are you changing things? Yeah, I know where I am now. So yeah, it's one of those things as a coach. I found it got me questioning things like, am I doing the right things? Am I a good coach?
Yeah.
And it was hard because you look at who you got, and yes, you're getting great results for them. So is it that I only work well with certain types of people, or is it that I need to be a bit more fluid and change my plans a bit more? But it was kind of like, well, they work, and they work for the majority of people. And what I found with, it's a hard one, because what I found with people that have got great results with me is they don't really question it. That they do, they're asking questions, but the kind of questions you want to answer and show and demonstrate why you're doing it. But they give the program 110%, and they always get really good results.
Yeah.
When I've given plans and trained things to people, they're like, oh, no, I'm not sure. No, I don't want to do that. Oh, no, not about that. It's almost like I know from the moment they say that, the plan's not going to work. Like, even if I've got them.
It's they haven't bought into it, have they? So if they're going, oh, I don't really want it, they're not going to give 110% to that, which then means that it might not work, because you're not giving it your all, because you mentally have gone, this isn't going to work for me. So it's not like, what is it? The old Confucius saying, he who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually right. And that's just because mentally, if you check into a process, then you're going to do it 110%. Whereas if you say no, then your brain's already going, this isn't going to work. So it's kind of not going to. Yeah, I remember allow it to happen.
There's a great powerlifter called Brandon Lilly. He's had some, monster powerlifter, huge totals. I remember reading, he put a thing out on Juggernaut saying, we've had discussions with me, Chad Smith, I think it was like Jim Wedler, some other guys, all talking, and all our programs are very different. But at the time, we believed in our heads this was the best way to do it. This is how you do it. And they're all very different training styles. But yeah, all these guys have achieved amazing results with them, their clients, over like many years. And they're saying that part of the reason was to do it. We just believed in it 110, and we really went for it. And obviously we changed and updated it when we thought things didn't quite work or could go better. But it was that feeling that you're like, what I'm doing is right. This is how we do it. For example, there's some guys on, I always mention him, but say Tony Cliff comes to mind. Tom Martin's a great example. He's a, I think 100 kilo guy that deadlifts 400 kilos in competition, like a monster. All he does is squat, bench, deadlift with a very tiny bit of variation for pretty much max effort every session. On paper, you tell that to anyone else, you'd be like, you're going to die. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is insane. My favorite is when you talk to bodybuilders about deadlifting, they're like, oh, I'm going to be fried. I can't do that. Possibly it's too much of this. And I'm like, this guy's deadlifting like 3-4 times a week. Like, you'll be fine, mate. Don't worry about it. But very different to say, say someone else, say Matt Wenning, other end of the spectrum, sort of the West Sidey type guy who does crazy amounts of variation. Basically, no two sessions seem to be the same. You never repeat anything; it changes constantly. But yeah, have both had phenomenal results and have done very well with very, very different styles.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. There's no one size fits all. Like, although humans like genetically are 99.9% the same, there's that 0.01% that makes us very, very different in how we respond to different stimuli, whether it's genetics, epigenetics, kind of whatever you want to say. Like, two people that you give the exact same training program, the exact same diet plan to, and they will have very, very different responses to it. And that's not to say that like some sort of standardization when it comes to programming isn't good, because I think it is, or else you just end up just throwing shit at the wall and hoping some of it sticks. But I think there's got to be a scientific approach to it, really. It's got to be, you have an idea, like, this is kind of what I believe. I test it with so many clients, but as long as every 6 months or so, you're also having a review of, well, what's gone well, what's not gone well, who's dropped out, why did they drop out, like, why didn't they get the results that they want? Was it because of something that I can control? Was it because they didn't buy in properly? Is there maybe something I can do at the beginning that helps them with the buy-in to understand what it is that I'm doing? Could I answer some of these questions beforehand with like the content and the giveaways and stuff like that I give out, so people understand how I work a little bit better before they kind of come into the coaching program? So there's lots and lots of different ways to kind of get around that side of stuff. But
right. At the same time, on the flip side of things, when you're working with we always talk about coaching because, full disclaimer, that's what we do for a living. We coach people. Yeah. We like coaching people. That's what we want to do. But whether it's your coach, your plan, and all that, say you have given, say, 5-3-1. It's a very popular powerlifting program which has been around for ages. Jim Wendler made it ages ago. He created it because he wanted to go right back to basics. It's a fantastic program, but you might find after 6 months of running it, you've stopped. And there's no harm in, he's also, done loads of more revisions of it, etc. But it might be worth moving on to another program, trying something else. Like, one of the best things I did in my training post back surgery was I moved to, do you know John Meadows, like Mountain Dog?
I've heard the name before.
Yeah, basically I moved to, he was all over T Nation at one point. So I went from like purely sports specific training to going purely bodybuilding training. And I'm not kidding. I think it was one of the best things I did for my training at that time. Good switching it up completely, getting used to reps, getting used to drop sets, getting used to, 2-hour leg sessions, doing things I've never done before where you didn't have to worry about what it was. Things like, starting off with leg curls at the start of a training session. When you go into squats, they feel completely different. But firstly, if you've got knee problems, do your leg curls first. It actually feels amazing when you squat. Secondly, if you're a bodybuilder, do your leg curls first, because so many bodybuilders have shit hamstrings. So if you've got a big hamstring, you're going to do well in competition. Dan Fraser, bodybuilding, you heard it here first. But just things like that, just switching the workout out. Or maybe I've talked about it before in the podcast, like when you put your main lifts at the end of a session, Dorian Yates famous for doing deadlifts, rack pulls at the end of a session, because he's like, with him, he's so fucking big and strong that I think if he deadlifted first, he'd probably put himself out of action. But just little things like that. So, the time is knowing when it is the right time to come off your program or change something on your diet or think, this approach isn't working. But you have to give it, we're talking like 3 months minimum, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's one of those things, like I've spoken to you about, once I've competed and put a little bit of weight back on, I might go into a bit more of like a powerlifting style block for a little while, because I've done bodybuilding training now for 3 coming up to 4 years, working in those higher rep ranges and stuff. Like, I think actually going into some more strength stuff, if I do that for a block of training, when I then go back into my like high rep stuff, I'll probably be stronger, which means I can use more load on those higher rep things and therefore get
Right.
a better stimulus from it and therefore grow. But I think too many people get too married to a particular style of training, and they then don't change it because they're just like, this is what I do, this is what I like, this is what I'm good at, and they get then stuck in a rut, and like mentally they're just not prepared to give something else a go. And you as you said, the best stimulus you've got for muscle growth was when you moved away from the powerlifting style training, went to bodybuilding for a little while, and it was completely new, it was completely novel, it was different to anything you'd done before. Therefore, your body reacted to it and it grew. If everybody remembers the first time they ever started training, it didn't matter what program you did, whether it was bodybuilding, whether it was going and doing 1 rep maxes every single session, you just grew. You ate and you grew because the stimulus was so novel to your muscles that it just happened. It's called newbie gains for a reason. Like, I've seen people put on like a stone and a half in pure muscle mass in like 18 months because they've gone from not doing anything to just training relatively hard, eating more, and their testosterone through the roof because they're a randy teenager. But people forget that. They get like, it almost gets, I miss those days when I could literally just run around the gym and do like, have the encyclopedia of bodybuilding and do every single chest exercise, and then you wake up the next day and like, why can't I move my arms? Like, it's almost like when the further into it you go, the more serious it gets, the more rigid things get, and for some people it gets less fun.
Yeah, I mean, you got me thinking. I was thinking about this yesterday. Do you remember? I don't know. I think it's because I've just had, I've got twins, and my training is right on the back burner. I've got yeah. If I can train, I'm lucky, shall we say? But it got me thinking. You remember when you first started training, and just that pure excitement and pure joy you had for the gym, and you say, it didn't matter what you did. Like, I would go in and I think I did 5x5 for about 5 years, and it worked. You just trained, you just got bigger, you just got stronger. Like, what would you do for a session? RPE 10 5x5 on squats. So you just like, it's crazy. But you just absolutely loved it, and you smashed it, and you really put the effort in and the dedication to training in, and you grew. So it wasn't the best plan, it wasn't the perfect program. That it was just coming in and training, but fuck me, you made some progress. So I think, I was very fortunate when I was growing up. From the ages of about 15 16 onwards, I was coached. I was at Harlequins Academy. I had a great Olympic lifting coach, sort my training out and give me some good principles and things to work off from when I very first started. So I had a great background, and that really made me grow. Like, I think I weighed my age till I was 19. Like, I just grew every time with it. But just the absolute love for training, and find love for all different kinds of training. So I think I've narrowed it down. They call it a training period, don't they? Where you start off as a kid playing sports, running around, all that, and it's like say I'm in my early-ish 30s. You're nearing there, so we're starting to get more towards that peak. We're still, we're not elite. I'm a very good athlete, but I still wouldn't say I'm an elite top level athlete. But I'm now narrowing it down to, you could say I'm still not very specific because I'm powerlifting and strongman. If I was truly specific, I would just be strongman. When I played rugby, I was purely rugby. It was nothing else. But to get there, I've done loads of different things. So I've really had a nice time doing. I've had a nice time. I love rep work. Absolutely love the feeling of the pump. I love high rep squat sets. I'll routinely do over sets of 8 off season, even during season. I just think it's a very good character builder. If you want to know what you're worth in training, do a 20 rep set of squats. That will teach you what you're about. But then things like
20 rep set of squats with what you'd normally squat 10 with.
I remember for my 25th or 6th birthday, I did 140 25 times, and that was hard. I could probably do that now easy, but back then that was like a big marker for me. But then the hardest squat set I've ever done was 180 beltless high bar for 10 with no equipment on. Like, if I put what I call all my gear on, wraps, not knee wraps, sorry, knee sleeves, the belt and all that, I reckon when I was strong, I probably could have done 230 for 10. Whereas 180 for 10 with the bar higher up with nothing on honestly ruined me. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Like, when you do the set, every rep is a 10. Like, if you think you're hitting RPE 10, you're not. Like, you don't truly know your max until you've been pushed to it. Which is part of the fun of when you're younger, like doing all this crazy stuff. Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is, do a whole load of different training, try loads of different things, and then when you start to find what you like, then you start spending a lot of time in that area, and then you can really make some gains, whether it's bodybuilding, powerlifting, CrossFit, Olympic lifting, whatever.
Yeah. So one of the questions kind of we were going to address was like how to build a training plan. I think we've covered quite a bit of that there. Obviously, depends on your goal, but try a shed load of different ones. That isn't ever going to be a best plan for you, because whatever you choose to do, after 6 months or so, you're probably going to need to change it again. What I probably would say would be try not to go into like straight away into like a bro split of doing like chest and tries on Monday, back and buys on Tuesday.
Let's spend some time on that, because it was asked in the group the other day. So
yeah,
you've pretty much nailed it. I want to talk about this. My theory is, and it's been talked about fucking since, for 10 years or so, when you see these buys, tries, guys, delts, all that kind of shit, you're seeing potentially what a bodybuilder at their peak is doing to finish themselves off. We had this discussion the other day about is it Big Ramy? I don't know his surname, about leg extensions. I think I'm quite clear on my thoughts on leg extensions. But for someone like him, fuck yeah, he's got to do his leg extensions. Get those quads dice, bro, and build that quad.
Get that detail.
Yeah, that detail. But for the majority of lifters, when I speak about this stuff, I'm thinking about some of the people I work with, or the people that potentially come to train. They're still not squatting a lot of weight, and I don't think you need to be squatting all the time per se. Like if you don't have to, certainly not, but you need to be able to know how to. And you'll find a lot of times these guys, like Dorian, his family didn't squat. He did a ton of other stuff, but fuck me, he put some effort in. But I bet you if you still put a barbell on his back, he could squat a shit ton. But what I'm trying to say is, to squat a lot of weight, you're not going to find huge squatters with tiny legs. They might have, bigger back because they use more of that in the squat, but they're not going to have these tiny little legs. So for a lot of guys, just the effort and the patience and the assistance work, with your single leg work, your leg presses or stuff, to build a double weight plus squat, body weight plus squat, you're going to, 8, 9 times out of 10, you're going to need big quads. So we'll talk about the little details they do. But I think when you're a kid, the first routine you do is you go to Argos, you buy your Sandfield York set with your little weird plastic nylon clip-ons, and you do set of curls every night, and you do some bench, and you just go hell for leather on that. And I think that's where this whole split is. I've got to trash my buys, otherwise I won't grow. I've got to absolutely ruin them, and then I'll wait, and then I'll train them again. And it's like, time and time again, it's all about frequency. And I think a lot of us specifically, it'd be good to hear your thoughts on this, mate. Natural bodybuilders are going more towards frequency.
Yeah.
Because it seems to be where the gains are coming from.
Yeah. So I've tried bro splits. I've tried full body workouts. I've tried upper lower splits. I've tried push pull leg. Basically every type of split, I've tried it in terms of muscle growth. Personally, I see the best growth at about 4 days a week, because that's kind of where my recovery is, and because
you only train 4 days a week.
I only train 4 days a week.
Everyone listen to this. 4 days a week. I am a very decent strongman powerlifter. I train 4 times a week. Don has very highly in bodybuilding. Great physique, knows what he's doing. He trains 4 times a week. You don't have to train 6 times a week. Like, if anything, it could be a problem.
So, obviously, me and you have got kids. We're probably not getting the best quality sleep. When I was 18 and I was at university and I went to uni, 20 hours a week, and the rest of my time was for drinking, other activities, and the gym. Like, I could train 5-6 days a week because my entire life revolved around it, and I was 18 and I was able to recover from whatever I was doing. I'm not 18 anymore. I'm knocking on the door of 30. Like, 4 days a week seems to be the perfect balance of frequency and still allowing me to go to the intensity that I want to. When my food's high, so I'm in the middle of an off season at the moment, I have bumped up to 5 days a week sometimes. But as soon as I feel my ability to recover starts to come down, I'll pull it back to 4. So sometimes it's good to push on to 5. Sometimes it's better to kind of pull it back. I've trained at 3 days a week before, just because I was building my business at the time, and that was more important than kind of training. So there's going to be periods of time where training is very, very important, and there's going to be periods of time when it's not as important. You've got two infants that are what, a couple of months old. Like, training is not your number one priority right now. You do it as and when you can because you enjoy it, but you also don't feel guilty because you're not training 4 days a week, I'm assuming.
Well, if I'm honest, when I had a lot of success being 105 when I was doing my competitions with a newborn baby, but it was, in retrospect, the wrong thing to do. I was actually very selfish. I would go disappear. We don't have any help up here. Basically, my wife had been home with a screaming child. She had colic, so you might know with Willow, they just scream non-stop for months. But I would I sat in a sauna for like hours to make weight and then go do it. And then in my head, I was doing the right thing. Whereas I've left my wife at home with a screaming child. It was just mindless. And I was selfish with him. I would dedicate still 4 times a week, 1 to 1.5, sometimes 2 hour sessions training when I wasn't really helping. And I kind of regret that now, and I did very well in competition, being 105, I look good as well, but it was it was at the expense of something else. So sometimes when you see these guys who are guys and girls are phenomenal athletes, they're great, but something is taking the strain a little bit. I think a lot of relationships are fantastic, and that's why people stay together for so long, because they allow that. You might have it, say, when you're prepping, your missus is like, well, I know this was what this means to you. I know it's going to be shit for a bit, but you'll bring it back another time when you're, like the moment you've been doing loads of looking after Willow with lockdown and all sorts of things, and I'm doing my best here, but there is a time when training comes at a cost. Time is a cost, and at the moment, with me, if I'm training, I'm away. Luckily my mother-in-law's part of our bubble, so she can help us, and she's living with us for this short term. She's there to help, so I don't feel so bad. But with 2 of them, if I go train for an hour, that's it's almost like I've made my wife have 2-3 hours on her own. So
yeah,
and it's hard for that, because I love training. I'm selfish with it, and I do think about it a lot, and it does get to me. But it's learning to create that balance that you are not your bench press PR, which is a big
and
thing.
I think as well, for the majority of the people within this group, they're not high level athletes. So I was listening to a podcast by Fuad. It's called the Real Bodybuilding Podcast, and they had a massive argument about like balance and how, as basically as a high level athlete, you can't have balance.
No,
you want to be the top of your field, you can't have balance. Like there's only 24 hours in a day. Your top level bodybuilders might be in the gym for 2-3 hours a day, and then they're looking at their food. They've got to eat their 6 meals, like literally they're food focused, and they've got to go and get their treatments. They've got to go get their massage, their cryo, all that kind of stuff. They've got to be very selfish as a sport. But I think for the majority of people in the group, like actually having that balance between work, family, and training is a very, very important aspect to understand. So this was going to be kind of like my 10 pence on this. Is the perfect training plan is the frequency that you can keep to without it impacting on your life too much. So when people first start out, and I've had clients come into consultations and I've gone like, how many days a week do you want to train? 5. Okay. How many days a week are you training at the moment? 0. Okay. Going from 0 to 5 in one jump is going to be a massive disruption on your life. So let's meet in the middle and let's go to 3. I think if we start at 3, that'll be a good place for you. And if we're doing 3, we're going to do 3 full body workouts, so that if you miss one, because also I've had loads of people that have started a plan and they want to train 5 days a week, and they get 2 weeks in and they actually find they're training 2 days a week. So if you're doing full body workouts, if you miss one, it doesn't matter. If you're doing a body part split and you do the traditional gym team split, which is International Chest Day Monday, then a little bit of back on Tuesday, shoulders on Wednesday, I can't even remember what they do on Thursday, and then legs on Friday, they always drop off Thursday and Friday. So that's why they're massive up top, and then they've got tiny little legs, because then if you are skipping sessions, that has a major impact on your ability, because you're skipping a whole body part. This is why starting with full body workouts when you're starting out is less impactful, because you can scale it up. So a really, really common training split that I use is having 2 full body workouts, and you've got an A workout and a B workout. And if you're aiming for 3 days a week, you'd go A, B, A, and then B, A, B. Because what it allows you to do is it allows you to cycle it up to doing 4 days a week if you can manage it, but it also allows you to cycle it down on weeks where you can only manage in 2. So as long as you're going A, B, as the pattern, say you've got 16 sessions, so you're aiming for 4 sessions a week over 4 weeks, but you have to drop it down to 3 sessions a week. That block of 16 sessions will then take you 20 weeks to complete. No, 6 weeks to complete rather than 4 weeks to complete. Whereas if you can get all four sessions in, you're going to be moving on to your next block of training faster. So that's a really, really common one that I use for when people are starting out, just because it gives them that flexibility and to not feel like they're failing. Because again, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to set yourself this big high target and then you keep missing it, because then when you miss it, you feel like you're failing, and that failure compounds and makes you feel like crap. And then you stop doing those good daily habits that you kind of put in place.
I do the same as well. Like I'm training twice a week, maybe 3 times a week at the moment, so it's always full body. Like, why would I just bench when I've got so much other shit to cover? And then maybe if you know you're going to kill that killer split, all right, maybe you can spend some more time doing the split. Doing the more bodybuilding type kind of split. But yeah, I think full body, or just 2 uppers, 2 lowers. I know research says other stuff, but like, fuck me, you can make some sick progress on 2 uppers, 2 lowers, 2 uppers, 2 lowers.
I prepped for my show pretty much the entire time on 2 upper, 2 lower. You can get plenty of compound work in, you can get plenty of accessory work in. The only reason why we've moved away from that for me now is I've got lagging body parts that I need to bring up.
Yeah. So now we're getting specific for you,
yeah. So for me, like my split at the moment is I've got push, which is today. So I've got push today, legs on Friday, pull on Saturday, and then at the moment I have an arms and shoulders day, because that is a body part that needs to be pulled up. Whereas we had a consultation with my coach the other day, and he goes, okay, I'm happy with the progress that you've made in your like shoulders and arms. We've pulled those up as a body part because you've had that extra frequency. I think you'd benefit now from another like full upper body day, just to, well, basically for my height and weight, my legs are pretty big. Like if you look at the stage photos of me on the UK DFBA, I'm the lightest one on stage at like 70 kilos, because the weight class that I did, I went into a novices class and it was under 75 kilos. So the guy that won must have been like 74.9, and my legs are bigger than his.
Rugby legs.
He was all up top. Like none of the guys on that stage had a decent pair of legs, even though some of them were like 5 kilos heavier. So now I've got to bring my upper body up to kind of like match my legs at the weight class that I kind of compete in. But that's very, very specific to me because I'm a bodybuilder. Like that's what I need to do. If you're training for general health and fitness, you don't need to bring up lagging body parts. Like that's not something that should kind of be coming into your vocabulary. You should be going, well, what is my goal? I want to feel and look better. Okay, what's the best exercises that are going to give me the most bang for my buck in the least amount of time? So the majority of the exercises you probably want to do if you're training 3 days a week, 4 days a week, is compound exercises. So your big pushes, your big pulls, your squats, your lunges, your hip hinges, like those should be 80, maybe even 90% of your program. And then
that's why I'm getting back to the leg extension, because people seem to be prioritizing 300 quid, a 300 quid machine when you should be spending 300 quid on a barbell and plates,
Yeah. So
it's the little touch.
Yeah, the leg, like I had a client have it the other day. They were looking for a leg extension. I was like, well, rather than getting a leg extension, why don't you get a bench that's got a leg extension attachment on it? Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Oh, okay. Well, so spend an extra 50, 60 quid on a bench that's got a leg extension attachment on it. Yes, it's not the nicest feeling thing, and yes, like for me, because I'm short, I have to put a box behind me on the bench so that my knee lines up with where the leg extension bit is, because it's built for somebody that's like 6 foot. So yes, there might be a little bit of alterations that you've got to kind of do, and because it's a bench, I can't move where the bench is, it's not as adjustable as that nice swanky leg extension machine is. However, I've saved myself 300 quid because now my bench, I can bench on it, I can incline bench on it, I can do rows on it, I can do preacher curls on it because it actually has a preacher thing that goes on the leg. It's like there's so much more. And when you've got a garage gym, space is at a premium. So you need bits of kit that have got multiple uses. Like a leg extension, leg curl, yes, it's nice. And if you've got like 1,000 square feet to play with, great, crack on. The majority of people are training out of a single garage. And yes, that thing hasn't got a big floor print. However, you could have something else in there that takes up that amount of space that has got multiple uses.
Yeah, man. I'll hold you to that because do you want to tell people about what your floor space is like in your gym, or should I?
No. But I've got enough space to deadlift in front of my squat rack.
You're sounding like when I talk to my missus and she's like, "Can you get rid of stuff?" I'm like, "No, I use it all the time. No, I need to keep it. It's totally fine."
I do. I use everything that's in there. I use it. And I've told you, this is the justification for me saying to my missus that when we move to a new house, either it's got to have enough space that I can build something that is bigger than a single garage, or it's got to have a double garage. That's when we move, which is going to be in the next few years. That's my stipulation, is that like I want to have good luck. He's got an exam today, so he's got to go into school. That's my stipulation on it, is that it's got to have a space where I can set up my home gym / studio, because even with me being an online coach, like all my gym kit is still tax deductible because I have to like film content on it.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah. Well, you need to do that for cover. You need a good home gym, like sell it to the converter. But yeah, you are right. Multiple use. This is why I've had such a big clear out. I've had some stuff I love, like monster dumbbells, and I actually did have a leg extension hamstring curl. But in terms of economy and yoke and like what it took up in space and how much I used it, it's not worth it. Like I sold all my dumbbells and bought some adjustable ones. You can say, oh, there's a trade off, but I don't really care. And of space I've gained and a bit of cash I've made from selling it was totally worth doing. I
don't know whether to go down the adjustable dumbbells route, because I would love a pair, or to do like the other idea that I've got is obviously I've got Olympic adjustables. So the other idea that I've got is to have hexes up to 20 kilos, because that would cover the majority of my accessory work. And then anything over 20 kilos, I can load up the Olympic dumbbells on, because actually I'm not changing them that often. It's like, this is the weight that I'm doing for this set, but it's a pain in the arse when I need to do like a 17.5 for like lateral raises, and then I've got to go and do pressing at like 35, and then it's a pain with the Olympics when you're having to change it for every single exercise. So that's the other idea I've got to cost them up and figure out which is going to be the most cost effective.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they won't even, with home gyms, it's not even going to be cost effective. You're doing it because how much do you want it, and you'll accept it. It's going to be a premium, or how much is it down to cost? I think for my adjustables, I got secondhand was $350 for secondhand power blocks up to 40 kilos.
Wow, okay.
Which is quite a bit, but decent. Whereas I got very lucky when I bought my dumbbells originally. They're only 300 quid. I think I sold them for like 700-ish, maybe a bit more altogether. So it kind of worked out quite well. But you're definitely going to be paying a premium for dumbbells. But I would maybe say for a power lifter, adjustable dumbbells will be fine. You kind of do dumbbell work as an accessory. So if they don't quite feel like a traditional dumbbell with the power blocks, you don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Possibly for maybe a physique athlete, you're going to be doing a lot more dumbbell work. If you're going to be spending a lot of time with them, maybe it is worth spending a bit more and buying a full set from, I don't know, Primal Extreme, or if you see them pop up on Facebook, something like that. Maybe it is worth that. It's things like I see people spending a lot of money on. Is it they called functional trainers? That Prime one, the monster one, where it's like a machine, a cable, and a rack. Personally, I would not spend that because I don't spend any time. I mean, I do a bit if I have the choice. Cables, leg presses aren't a big thing. So to drop $4,000 on a rack and that style for me would be insane. But to a bodybuilder, maybe me dropping 350ish on the Rogue Power Bar I've got would be crazy as well. So it's all about what you use your space for.
Yeah, and as you said, like for me, that monster system would be brilliant. Just because if I got that, I could probably get rid of my current like multi-gym setup that I've got, and probably get rid of if I could get rid of my leg press, but it's also a hack squat, so that's why I wouldn't get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I could then get rid of my squat rack because obviously it's got the safety bars on it. I probably won't because I like squatting in a rack for the safety side of it. And as I said, if I ever get that system, it'll be when I move to a bigger space so that there is enough space to have that at one place and then the set up on the other end where I can have a bench and stuff set up, because I did used to do like bench off my multi-gym system. I just didn't like it. Whereas benching within the rack, it's a lot. It just feels safer, which then means I can actually push myself to actual muscle failure. Whereas when I was on benching off the multi-gym thing, because the like spotter handles just weren't as long, I didn't feel comfortable in it. But yeah, that's the plan, and that's the beauty of of a home gym is it's a space for you. When you go to a commercial gym, there might be stuff in there that you're never really going to use. However, you might just give it a go because it's there. Whereas you can pick and choose the equipment that goes into your home gym. Like you can make those decisions about, well, what is going to be important for me is, and as you said, like you can buy stuff and you can sell it on. Like if you buy something and it turns out to be a mistake, especially with the climate we're in at the moment, like you'll probably be able to make your money back or make a small loss. As one of our favorite members of the group kind of like finds that sometimes you can't just sell stuff on for the price you bought it for, just because
I just want to get back what I paid for. It's my favorite, but yeah, you are right. I mean, we're at a time, a fella dropped $1,500 on a primal order the other day, and he put it in the group, and I was thinking, what the hell? That's a lot of cash. But yeah, I was thinking about it. I was like, well, it is, but if he wanted it back, he could sell it pretty much full price like that. And say if you lose a couple £100, you're like, well, say if I lost £100, and I've used it for like 3 months because we're not going to change any time soon. We actually, well, obviously vaccines rolling out, etc., will change in the future. But short term, we're not changing anytime soon. So
no, I don't think gyms are going to be back open until at least March.
No, I think there's going to be a big shift. I say I think, not that I've spoken to any gym company owners or anything, to the home gym market with a focus on that. I think there's going to be even companies, we were talking about this in the group the other day, like say companies like Jordan, who have always been massive. I know Jay's got chatting to those guys.
They're open. Well, sorry, they're bringing out a home gym range because one of their representatives put up one of their things of kit, and I don't think the home gym is in. I don't think people, especially that are new to the home gym market, understand like what gyms pay for equipment, because you take what we pay as a home gym and then probably add at least 50% more on top of that because it's a business.
Remember that?
Techno gym, yeah.
Insane.
Well, they're like the high end of the fitness market. So when I was working as a fitness manager, like I'd get all these companies wanting to sell us like equipment. So like you've got your Techno Gym, who else is up there? Hammer Strength, and then there's another company that are like top end of the market, like everything's a premium. If you want a squat rack from them, you're looking at like $3,000.
Yeah.
You've then got like the middle of the market, which is like Pulse Fitness, Life Fitness, the stuff you'd see in like a DW gym or so like Hammer Strength is like your David Lloyd style gym. Your like Life Fitness is like your LA Fitness, your DW, that kind of gym. And then you've got like the bottom end of the market that ends up in what I'm trying to think of the budget gyms now. But they all kind of shift and change as well.
Yeah.
Pardon? Fit for Less and stuff like that. Yeah. I'm not sure. I think Fit for Less went out of business,
Exercise for Less have been bought out. Yeah, there's a JD taking over. But even saying that, mate, JD up here is £16 a month.
Yeah.
And it's got Alico everything.
Yeah.
Well, what
But
the
they've got the
hell?
brand of JD behind them, haven't they?
Yeah, I think
So,
they
and
lease the equipment. Like, it's
yeah,
just
and there's another one that's just opened in Gainesville. It's called Snap Fitness, because I've got a couple of clients
great
across
name, by
there.
the way.
And like, I'd never heard of them before, but apparently, like, they're a national chain, but it's 24 hours, and like, it's fairly cheap memberships. So they're going along the cheap membership model essentially, but they have things like hack squats, pendulum squats, like the bodybuilder specific kits in there. So because they understand, like, bodybuilders, they will pay 20 quid a month till the end of time. If you can get like high level amateurs and semi professional like athletes to come into your gym, you've got a very, very dedicated membership that'll continue to pay their membership. So if they get like a special price and new people have to pay like 5-7 quid a month more, they'll just keep their membership going because they know, right, I might not train for 3 months, but I'll probably get back into it. Whereas your normal, what do you call them, Gen Pop, that are the sleeping members, like when they drop out, even if it's 15 quid a month, they're cancelling their DD as soon as they can. So I think a lot of these companies are now going for that, the higher end athletes, so they're getting better quality kit so that they can attract those sort of people in. Because like, if one of those opened here, I would probably have a membership just to be able to use a pendulum squat, to be able to use some of the bits of kit that I can't. Like, I bought a hack squat for in my house because the hack squat at the gym I went to was shit. So I bought a hack squat leg press, which probably sent me back 1,200 quid, which is a very specific piece of kit, but because I'm a bodybuilder, I need it. That's how I justified it to my wife. Whereas like your average Gen Pop person does not need a hack squat in their garage gym setup. Like you don't need it. We had somebody did a review on a hack squat in the thing the other day, and I was looking at it, I was like, why? I don't know why you've spent that much money on something like that. I don't know your goals though. So they made me an actual bodybuilder. I don't know.
Yeah, it's. I think I do the same. I had my JD membership because it had some things that I don't have the home gym, nor would I ever buy. So for the sake of 20 quid a month, I might as well have it. But the other way around, I had this great plan that if I went 4 times a month,
Yeah.
once a week, it would cost me like £4.50-ish a session.
Yeah.
I actually went one time in a year. So I go to the gym probably cost me about 120 quid. So it was
Right, okay.
worth my investment, So, when some people talk about the cost of gym equipment, well, especially now, let's just ignore COVID and all that. Say if you buy equipment and buy used, yes, there is an expense. But if you get the majority of your stuff and you plan to train at home for nigh on forever, it actually probably works out being cheaper than having a gym membership. It just takes time for us to work out.
Yeah, and hope you don't get addicted like we do and keep seeing better gyms and they're like, I want that. And then, yeah, that's okay.
But I mean, it's almost like a caveat. I say that, but I know full well I'll still probably buy crazy stuff and things that maybe I shouldn't be buying that. And I'm normally quite good, but like things like a skier, that's quite expensive. But I know it'd be a great addition to the gym, so I'm quite keen to get one. So when you think you've paid it off, you just whack another year onto that, and then it just keeps rolling forward. But
right. Should we cover the one question we got come through and then wrap it up?
Yes, let's do that, mate. And then I think we'll definitely delve more into training and diet over the next few podcasts.
So we'll probably call this one like how to set up a training split, just because that's the majority of what we've talked about, and then we've talked loads of shit around it. So thoughts on adding bands to compound movements. I've seen a few of the top level raw powerlifters using bands, particularly on bench recently. I'm wondering if it's worthwhile variation or if it's just because they can't find enough plates to buy right now. So obviously, if you speak about this in terms of powerlifting, and then I'll go into it about why a bodybuilder would want to add some bands in.
Okay, so purely from a powerlifting perspective, bands, if there's a note, is accommodating resistance, popularized by Westside with Louis Simmons. You attach bands. What it does is it impacts the lift on the what do you call it, the force spectrum when you're lifting. So when you lift, there's a point where you're strongest in the lift and where you're weakest. So if you think of it in terms of a squat, when you get right to the bottom, probably why everyone misses it out mostly, is it's very hard. You are in your weakest position. When you start getting towards the top of the movement, that is where you are strongest. So if you think in a squat, if you can think how much you can quarter squat compared to how much you can deep squat, there are other things going on, but generally speaking, that's where you're strongest. So the idea is where you start getting to where you are strongest, you make it a lot harder. You add some resistance. So bands create a lot of tension. There's lots of different bands out there, from mini bands all the way up to bands which create, I think, something silly like maybe 100 kilo plus per band when you're squatting. So you can really add some bands, really add some resistance. They are good for a few reasons. Traditionally, the reason we spoke, to add more resistance when you're strongest, so you can work to be strong, to make it harder, basically. So where it's getting easier, it actually ends up getting harder. Secondly, you can add bands to improve your speed. So if you're using a band, if you don't move fast, the band won't let you lift it. So you have to use a lot of, we call speed strength, to lift that weight. You're not going to be moving fast. It's just the intent to move fast, which you should be doing with your concentric portion on most exercises. So the intent, you have to have a lot of intent to move the weight with bands. Thirdly, one of the reasons I love banded squats is it teaches people how to keep position. And if you have lifts which are particularly messy, so I've got a lifter that comes to mind whose squat was a bit all over the place. He'll know who he is when I'm talking about him. We put bands on him, and it's really taught him how to root himself into the ground. By rooting, I mean getting your feet solid into the floor, by keeping a good eccentric position. And when he comes up, not deviating from that position. If you've ever lifted with bands and you move out of position, you will know about it straight away. You won't make that lift, or it will cut you off straight away. Like similar to geared powerlifting, if you lose your position, you fucked. You're not going to lift it. So with bands, it also really helps you with the what do you call it, technique. Really helps you keep a nice position to keep things moving. Fourthly, it can be a great bit of variation. Powerlifting training can be very typical, very boring, very specific, as in squat, 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 squat. By putting bands in, you've got a little bit of a change. It might give your joints a slight break in a range of motion that needs it. For example, at the moment, I'm squatting with bands because I think it works my upper back quite hard. I'm a bit weak towards the top of the squat. If you ever see me fail a squat, you think, why the hell have you failed that lift there? Because I look like I've almost finished it, but I have a, relatively speaking, weak glutes, weak upper back, so it doesn't finish the lift. So putting bands on, I'm actually finding it's making my upper back and my glutes work harder, and I'm having to lift, put more intent in the bar to finish it. So I think that's covered it, was it? We had speed strength, we had technique, we had accommodating resistance, working the strength curve, and we worked technique. I think that's pretty much it. So raw lifting, some guys love it, some guys are not bothered. There are some fantastic powerlifters that use bands and rate them very highly. I know Shiko does use it in some of his programming. I know a lot of the raw guys do. I know TSA aren't that keen on bands, but I know loads of other guys are. So I think they're brilliant. If you don't have a set, go buy a set. Even if you never use them again, you have to experience them to use them.
Yeah. So in terms of bodybuilding, it became very popular just before kind of like COVID came in, to be attaching band to machines, because as you said, it's called accommodating resistance. So in a pressing movement at the fully shortened position, you're in the weakest point, whereas as you're just about to lock out, you're in the strongest point. The one movement that's probably not beneficial to do is a pulling movement, because actually when you're doing a row and you're pulling back, when the band is at its lengthened position is when you are in your weakened position. So you're going to have to compromise the amount of load that you can do to kind of be able to use it. So that's the caveat in terms of adding bands to kind of like machines. And the reason why you would do it again in bodybuilding is that kind of like accommodating resistance, and it helps certain machines follow the force curve of the muscles that are working. So a really, really common one is like leg press or hack squats or something. So you'll find that bodybuilders tend to use bands on machines rather than on free weight movements. I've seen some people doing banded like deadlifts and stuff. and essentially it's the same thing. But the most common one that I personally use it for is the leg press and the hack squat. But just as what Dan said, at the bottom of the movement, you are at your weakest point. So if I have two medium, I think I use my purple bands on the hack squat, it probably drops maybe 30 kilos off right at the bottom of the squat, which is where you're at your weakest, which just means that you can keep loading on weight, because what would normally happen is your sticking point would be right at the bottom. So whereas my quads might need 160, 170 kilos for like that final lockout to be getting the right stimulus to grow, the glutes and the hamstrings right at the bottom are holding it back. So by having that band on the back, it means at the bottom of the lift, I'm lifting on like 130, whereas at the top of the lift, I'm at 160 or whatever it means. It just allows you to put more weight, more intensity kind of into the lifts that you're doing. So I probably wouldn't advise bands until you're at least an intermediate lifter, just because you just want to concentrate on getting fucking strong. Like doing accommodating resistance and all that kind of stuff. If you can't do like the basic movements to kind of like a decent standard, you don't need to be taking the weight at the bottom. You just need to be focused on getting stronger. The other time you would use bands is if you don't have enough weight for a particular exercise with like home training and stuff. So you get these ones that like clip on and stuff. So I've seen some guys and girls getting like, what do you call them? Like the ankle straps. So say, for example, on a rowing movement, you get an ankle strap, you get a band that's slightly in front of you. And so if the dumbbell isn't enough weight to get you to hit failure, they'd add the band, they'd have it strapped in front. And then it's trying to mimic the movement as best as possible. So I've got some guys that they've got like 25 kilo dumbbells at home, whereas they can bench like 80, 90 kilos. So by wrapping a mini band around their back, wrapping it around the dumbbells and then doing chest press with it, it adds in a slightly different stimulus. It means that they can actually hit muscle failure within the reps kind of we're aiming for. And one thing Dan didn't mention as well is with a band, it's going to try and accelerate that dumbbell down. So that's the difference between bands and chains. So with chains, it's still accommodating resistance, but as you push up, you get more links coming off the ground, which means you're kind of like adding weight. Another thing with a band is when you're in that top position and then you go into the eccentric phase, for example, on a pressing movement, the band is trying to accelerate the weight down. So controlling that eccentric phase, it makes the eccentric phase even harder. So if you try and do a press and then you're trying to count to 4 or 5 on the way down, because the band's trying to accelerate it down, it makes that part of the movement harder. So if you're trying to do extended eccentric training, then it's a really, really good benefit for that. Yeah. So, and then you covered all the other bits.
Yeah, well, that's for me where it ties into technique and that eccentric. Yeah. A lot of strong lifters, you tell them to, one of the first things I do with a lot of guys is, big deadlifters, big squatters, right? Well, what can you control for 4 seconds down and then squatting back up? You'd be surprised. Well, you probably won't because you know tempo training, but surprised how crap people are at tempo. Like, I mean, I was, I felt, pretty big on Poliquin when I was younger. So I tempoed everything to death to the point that it was a bit over the top. Yeah. Whereas it really did help a lot with learning how to lift properly. Do your tempo work, guys. It really does pay off. Probably not for the reason you think in terms of, it will have it does have a hypertrophy benefit as well, of course, but it also works really, really well for keeping position, getting better and getting stronger.
And in terms of powerlifting, like I think a lot of people forget with powerlifting, it's not necessarily adding on new tissue. That's meaning you're getting stronger. It's neurologically, you're getting better at the exercise with the loads that you're doing. Like how much mass have you put on when you've been doing like a decent powerlifting block? It's probably not a massive amount, but you've probably continued to get stronger.
But it would be better if I focused.
So that's about the hour mark. So I know you've got to get off. You've got plenty to do today. We both run businesses. So thank you for your time today, as always, Dan. So for the guys that are listening, have listened to this kind of like all the way to the end, where can they find you if they want to know all things powerlifting, getting stronger, being super dad, like where do they find you?
Super dad, stronger, trying to be lean, but also fat at the same time. You can follow me, Dan Frazier, on Facebook, or follow me at Barbells and Beans on Instagram. Also, before I go, please download and subscribe to the podcast, because that's what gets us to grow. The more we can grow and get people downloading and subscribing, the more stuff we can give out, like exclusive discounts and codes for some great companies and exclusive offers. So if you can get that subscribe button going, or share it with your Spotify, or even share with your friends that you think might like it, that really helps us. That boosts our numbers up, and then we can start getting some sick discounts for the group.
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me at DegePT on both Facebook and Instagram. And yeah, I might actually record a little bit at the beginning, because I've looked at the things and not everybody listens right to the end. So I'm going to record a little bit at the beginning that says about make sure to click download and subscribe, etc. So for all of you guys that listen right to the end, as Dan said, as we get bigger, as we get more people kind of like following this, just like within the group, things are kind of growing. The bigger the community we generate, the more likely we get that businesses kind of want to work with us. We can do giveaways, we can do competitions, we can do all that kind of stuff. But to be able to do that, we need to get more downloads, more subscribers. So if you could share this episode to your social media, encourage your friends, family, anybody who's into training to subscribe, we would very much appreciate it. So been great to chat to you as always, buddy, and I will speak to you again next week.
Awesome, mate. You take care. Have a great day. See you guys.
No worries. Bye for now.
Yeah. Good one, man.